Welcome to the Financial Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Todd Romer. We started this podcast for two specific reasons. Number one, to inspire you to start a side hustle and make some extra income. Or perhaps take that side hustle and turn it into a full-time business, like some of our guests have done already. The second reason we started the podcast is because we're big fans of credit unions, and we have worked with credit unions around the country to help them drive awareness and new membership growth amongst younger generations. Frankly, with a credit union, you can do a lot of what we teach about money the Financial Rebellion way. So let's get into this episode of Financial Rebellion. Welcome to Financial Rebellion. This episode, we are thrilled to have, as you can see, two guests today on the podcast, both from Tampa, Florida. And before we introduce them, wanted to share that we are all about helping young people 18 to 34 and older become smarter about money, investing in business. Yes, smarter about money, investing in business. We have a email newsletter as well that goes out weekly to our thousands of subscribers, and that's at financial-rebellion.com. And we have a lot of guests on that, whether it's talking about money, investing, business, entrepreneurship, things that can help people really do their financial life differently than anything they're going to be taught anywhere in school, that's for sure. But a lot of the time we have guests on like Mathis and Rima here that will be telling you about their not only side hustle, but legit business. So welcome to the podcast, Financial Rebellion podcast, Rima and Mathis.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. And again, Mathis Haugen and Rima, your last name, El Brouzi, correct? El Brouzi?
Yes, you got
awesome.
it.
Okay, I got to find out. Mathis, you are from Norway.
Yes, that's correct. Oslo in Norway.
Yep. And then Rima, where did you grow
up? In Casablanca in Morocco.
Morocco. So that's fantastic. And you both are, Mathis, you're about ready to graduate from University of South Florida real soon. And then Rima, you're a graduate student at University of South Florida.
That's right. Go Bulls.
How fun is that? So go Bulls. Yeah. So we are just thrilled to have you on. We are also, we're big fans of credit unions. So we want to just do a shout out to USF Credit Union, who is nearby. Mathis, you're a member of USF Credit Union too, correct?
A loyal member for 4 years, I believe now.
Nice. They do they have a critical mission, and that is to help people become financially successful and reach their dreams. And I would assume you believe their customer service is off the charts, as most credit unions provide that too.
It's been a really good experience so far.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get into the icebreaker before we ask you about your business called SIP, SYP. What an exciting business you all have created. And I know our viewers and listeners are going to be very interested to hear how you started this. But we always do the icebreaker of Rima, we'll start with you. What has been your best and worst money move over the last few years or as recent as yesterday?
Well, before I answer that, you got to keep in mind I'm a college student, right? So, the overall vibe is just being broke and just making it month by month. But I will say the best money move that I think I've been doing over the last few years after, a lot of experience trying to budget money is prioritizing investing money or just spending money on experiences rather than things that are just going to sit there and not really serve as time goes by. I feel like through meeting different people, experiencing new things, it's so much more fulfilling than just acquiring something and just having it sit there. So for me, I think going forward, that's something that I haven't been doing as much, but I think the more I do, the better I feel about myself. But now about the worst money move I do, I think it's definitely a work in progress. I'm trying to get rid of that, but I think justifying expenses when I'm stressed or overwhelmed oh, like I deserve another overpriced drink, or I deserve another going out dinner with my friends, or something like that. Sometimes I think that emotional state, just to make it feel better, is like, oh, I'll just spend money on it and hopefully it makes it better. Maybe it does temporarily, but I don't think that's the best way to go about money.
Love that. Mathis, how about you?
I don't have that many good purchases, I believe, but being a college student, piggybacking off Rima a little bit. Obviously, USF it's a massive school, and a very big campus as well. So, I think the best investment I ever did was my electrical scooter. That kind of made me a lot more effective and productive, being able to drive around campus from class to class, going to my room, getting lunch, and then keep going. So that has been an investment I've been very, very satisfied with. And then my worst investment was during COVID. It was at the brink of the AI when that started to be known. I fell for a little scheme with the AI that was gonna give me money and help me invest on my behalf. So I lended it a couple of $100, and saw obviously no return. Figured out really quickly that that was going to be a scam. So that one hurt really early on. So I think that's the worst investment I've made so far.
Thanks for your honesty. I bet there's 95% of listeners and viewers who have been scammed out of something somewhere along the way in their life. So you're not alone.
It's
Okay, now we're going straight.
embarrassing to
What? Go ahead.
admit. It's embarrassing to admit, but I feel like it happens to a lot of people. Hopefully,
Oh, it does. It does. Because if the scams didn't work, they wouldn't be as prevalent as they are, right? Because you can now test them out, or you can see them, and you're like, I'm aware of what this is. So they'll keep coming at you, but now you have the experience to go, nope, we're good. Okay, tell me about SIP. SYP is the name of your product. Tell us about your company. That's pretty exciting.
yes, absolutely. So I actually have it on my bottle right now. As you can see, it's this black silicone sleeve that sits at the bottom of any water bottle. So we can take it off. Simply, what it is, it's a puck. Inside the puck, we have a load cell that works basically as a weight scale. So we attach it using a silicone sleeve. So every time you go and drink from your water bottle, we measure the weight of the bottle. And if we detect a weight difference, that's how we know exactly how much you consumed of liquid. And that data gets sent to an app. And on the app side, we're able to integrate with any type of wearables you're using to get an understanding of who you are, what's your persona, what's your hydration habits, hydration need, and continue to learn your persona as you go and continue to use the app. So we are super excited about this. We are going to launch with athletes to begin with, try and integrate this into sports teams, and then scale from there into the broader consumer market, but also into more specific sectors and industries such as industrial health, military, elderly care, healthcare, etc.
You tell me before I speak with Rima and her input. You were a student athlete at USF, played soccer, and tell more about that story, which I believe was part of the reason why you started SIP. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So my freshman year, I got recruited to come to play soccer for the USF men's soccer team. This was in 2022, and my freshman season going into the fall, I was feeling amazing, and I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be a starter. So I was playing every single minute, and obviously feeling on top of the world, being one of the few freshmen that was able to get a lot of minutes. And in the fall, it's a extremely heavy workload, and also being in Tampa at insane temperature and humidity. So over time, my body is slowly starting to shut down. I wasn't able to recover sufficient enough from game to game. And during an away games against SMU, I had to be carried off the field with a seasoning ending injury that got traced back to dehydration over time. Because it turned out that my hydration habits that I've been lived by for 20 years growing up in Norway wasn't sufficient enough when we changed out the climate and the intensity of my day-to-day life. And freshman Mathis was definitely not an entrepreneur, so I didn't think too much of the time. I did my rehab, got back into the game, back into the team, But later on, when Rima and I'm sure we're going to touch on this later on, started our entrepreneurial journey together, that became a very natural problem that we knew existed. We knew we had experienced ourselves and started to try and work on a solution that later on became SIP.
Man, that's tough that you went through that your freshman year, playing all those minutes and what you had to encounter. And you could have chosen to give up, or you could have chosen, just whatever. But it's slightly inspiring already hearing what you're saying and what you're doing. So sorry that happened to you, but what a turnaround you're making in a lot of ways. Okay, Rima, what is your role with the business, and how you met Mathis, and how this all came together from your perspective?
Yeah, it's I think my favorite story to tell. So my official title today is co-founder and CTO, but it took us some time to get to there. How everything started basically is that I did my undergrad at USF as well. I studied computer science there for 4 years. I started in the fall of 2021 and graduated in May 2025. Throughout my first 4 years, I was the manager of the men's soccer team, which is where I met Mathis, who joined the team in January 2022. So he came a semester after me, but since he's also an engineering major, we had a lot of the initial classes we would take, not necessarily together, but he would take right after me. So naturally not a lot of athletes study engineering, so we kind of bonded over that. And conversation come and goes, and we just ask, oh, so what did you get in this class, what did you get in that class? And I remember that Mathis would always get a lot better grades than me in physics, and I would always struggle. I would study so much and I wouldn't do as good, and he would be like, oh yeah, like I just got this and that. So it stuck with me. Fast forward a few years down the line, my roommate at the time and I decided to join an energy tech competition. So we had to solve an issue that had to do with renewable energy and, just nature in general. And we had to rely it to tech. I'm computer science, she's marine biology. So it just made sense that we'd work together. So we start thinking of, coral, coral restoration, working with renewable energies, making something work there. And then we decide, okay, let's reuse abandoned oil rigs to generate energy to help with coral restoration. Super cool project. The idea is cool. But in theory, we got it. But then when it came to the more technical side, we were lacking that whole physics side of things. Naturally, who do I think of? Oh, Mathis, because he's a genius in physics. So I call him and I'm like, hey, Mathis, there's this project going on. Would you be interested in joining? And, it kind of just really worked out for the both of us because at that time he was coming back from Norway back to here after winter break. And it was kind of a transitional time for him where he wanted to focus a little more on academics. And it just made sense, like a cool project. We know each other. He knew my roommate as well. So let's just get working on that. That was the first project we worked on. We participated in that competition. We won the prize of what we were doing. We ended up semi-finalists at the national competition, which was a great experience. We thought about continuing, but we just weren't that passionate about it. And it's also such a huge industry to break into. But from there, we kind of realized that we had a good dynamic working together. So we just kind of took that and then went forward with it. At the time, 2 years ago, I was part of CEO, which is the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. It's the entrepreneurial organization at USF. And we would attend events here and there. And randomly, this one day, Mathis and I go to the event, and it was an incubator competition. So the challenge was to come up with an idea, pitch it in 15 minutes, and whoever wins a spot in the incubator for the summer. Me and Mathis go, not even preparing anything, just going with the flow. We end up winning. Great. We got into the incubator. And we had this idea, very dear to our hearts. It's
Wait,
called
wait, wait! Time out! Time out! Time out! How did you win? Win with what? What did you bring to the table? It's a
So
great story so far.
the concept is now sounds a little not ridiculous, a little simple, but at the time it was like really what made our hearts explode. It was basically an automatic lock for scooters and bikes. So you know how, for example, on campus for us, if you're riding a bike or a scooter, when you get to a building, you have to get off of it, find an empty spot, put your lock, and then go to class, which can take everyone's in a rush all the time. It can take some time. So we just thought it'd be this platform. You come on it, you put your bike or scooter, you scan it, it locks, you leave, you come back, you scan it again, opens, great. We were very passionate about it. It went really well. Like, this is the next big thing. I remember we used to talk to everyone like it was the best idea on earth. It was our first kind of encounter, in this more serious environment. And we got a lot of really good critics about it, which ended up showing that it wasn't the most viable business idea. But we still had that spot in the incubator and the drive and the passion for wanting to solve something. One thing led to another. We started thinking of different problems that we thought we could solve in a very innovative, but also would be interested in. And then hydration came up naturally. The episode that Mathis went through 3 years or 2 years before that just perfectly made sense for the both of us. And SIP came to life.
Love the story. Love all of the beginnings, right? That's the fun part of starting a business or side hustle is the beginning and how things start. Okay, so I'm holding up, by the way, I laughed in a good way. So Mathis, you know that every student athlete that's listening to this is like, see, this stereotype that student athletes are not smart, I just busted through that. Everyone's going to be happy that you're on. So that was great, Rima, that you said, yeah, not many people who are student athletes take engineering classes. That's hilarious. But Mathis is bucking the trend. Okay, I'm holding up a water bottle. Would SIP, SYP, your hydration product, fit on the bottom of this?
Absolutely. So the first product that we're bringing to market, it's based on the diameter of a cup holder in your car. And through our research before building the product, we found out that 80% of reusable water bottles are designed so the bottom of the bottle fits into this exact diameter right here. So obviously you have a lot of different designs, but the basic of the bottom of a lot of bottles are identical due to that user functionality as well. So to answer your question, yes, the simple device would work perfectly with your current water bottle.
So you're in the industry of hydration. That's the market. Do you have any, I don't know, total addressable market? They call it TAM in terms of these. And then just any numbers about the market that you're going into? Because I think you guys got something here.
Yes, absolutely. So the way we have broken it down, instead of just throwing out big, large billion-dollar markets, we're actually broken them down based on user base, how many potential users we can target based on our B2B model. So we're starting with Division One athletics with a B2B model where we sell it to the teams and distribute it to their athletes. We're gonna charge around $180 per SIP device per team. So in NCAA Division One athletics, that's roughly 175,000 athletes, putting the market of in the millions. But from there, we want to scale into industrial safety, military, professional sports, healthcare, and elderly care. And so what we like to say is we start small on purpose to get the proof, validation, and the experience that we need to unlock the 16 plus $1 billion markets that those additional markets would be here in the US.
That is significant. And tell me about, again, Financial Rebellion podcast. We are sponsored, partnered, if you will. We help elevate the credit union industry, such as USF Credit Union, other credit unions in Tampa and all around the country, including Alabama Credit Union, Kemba Credit Union here in Cincinnati. But so tell me about there's so many, make sure you do this over the decades, right? Make sure you don't have too much fried food. Make sure you don't eat eggs. And then, wait, eggs became okay for cholesterol. It's like, wait, we're getting all this information, like, don't do that, but do this. And then I would say maybe 10 years ago, Rima and Mathis, this became all the rage. Hydration, drinking water. And talk about how many of these, when you open up kitchen cabinets, you know where I'm going with this. Yes. How many of these are in there? There's like 20, right? And they're everywhere. So you do you have the data or how much hydration is responsible for legit good health, especially with student athletes and the cardio that's needed. So, speak to that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think you touched up on a lot of really good points. The first one I'd like to come back to is the whole 10 years ago, this became a thing. And then, we have advice that it's different here and there as time goes by. But right now, the way our society is going, there's a huge momentum around wellness, being healthy, staying fit. Everybody's working out, everybody's promoting, not going out, going to sleep early. There's a huge rage with wearables. Everybody's tracking their sleep, what they eat, how much they work out and all of that. And we realized that hydration is so niche because everybody drinks water, everybody needs to drink water, but there's still a lot of misinformation that goes about it. There's a huge lack of awareness, lack of education when it comes to it. And you'd be surprised to know that there still isn't an exact pinpoint of how much water a person is supposed to be drinking for it to be efficient or optimized, because it's personalized to everybody. Not everyone needs to drink the same amount of water. And even if one person needs to drink a certain amount today, it might be different tomorrow if they're sick, if they worked out, if they're in a hot environment, regardless of what's happening in their daily life. Which is why in SIP we try to really leverage that. And a lot of the value we bring is that customization that we bring to every person. So when we do give you that baseline of how much you need to drink, of course, the foundation is the regular things, your age, your gender, your average level of activity, where you live, and so on. But then we adapt that every single day based on the data that you give us. So, say, for example, like I mentioned earlier, if you worked out outside at a certain time of the day, a specific type of workout, if also you have wearables that you're using that we are allowed to connect to, we can use the data from it. We know your strain, we know how much you need to recover, and simultaneously with all of this, we are kind of building an intelligence platform because we are doing research that really targets how much water do you really need to drink. If you sweat this much, if you're tired this much, all of these numbers are kind of going to start to make sense. And once we have that bank of data, then we can accurately and certify that we have an accurate baseline, an exact formula, and just something that could technically work for everybody. So that's kind of the way we're going about it at SIP.
And you're launching this summer?
So we're about to finalize our first prototype that's been going on for months now. Obviously, as first-time founders, we realized that building a new hardware product is something that takes a lot of time and requires a lot of capital, which is why a lot of people are scared to get into the business. But once you have succeeded in bringing such a product to market, then again, obviously, it's a lot more defensible towards different competitors. So we're kind of battling the hard battles at the moment for hopefully a more successful um, time down the line. But our current status is, like I said, we're a month away, 6 weeks away from finalizing our product development. So a lot of the work we're doing now is to figure out where we want to launch our first manufacturing run. That will happen over the summer, and then into the fall, we're going to start our first pilot with a few of the Division One teams here at USF Athletics to really fine tune the solution. Get, like Rima mentioned, data is a huge part here, is to understand the data, see what metrics we approve with our solutions, and from there, commercial launch will be early 2027, where we will really do a push regionally and towards the southern states here in the US.
That's really, really cool. You guys are playing the long game. You have a lot of grit, I can tell, and that's what's required, right, with entrepreneurship. The hills and valleys of every startup that goes, every person who starts a company. And speaking of that, you also likely have doubt and fear that everybody has. So, how do you tackle the doubt and fear that comes in from time to time about will this work? How do you compartmentalize that? How do you take care of that for yourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to answer that because I have a story from when we first started. Like Rima mentioned, the whole story of us working together in starting in 2024 was again just side projects included with schools. But then when we started early on working on SIP, I am a very a defensible guy. So I had my doubts in the beginning and really struggled to see how the two of us were going to make this work. So really early on, I was down here and Rima, her personality is up here. We're going to take over the world with this product. That was her mindset from the very beginning. So that was so important for SIP, but also for me on a personal level to kind of have someone like that in my life that could push me, get out of my comfort zone, get out of my habits to really believe, see the vision. And like, she made me believe, she made everybody else we would talk to believe it. From there was just a ripple effect where one conversation led to another. But definitely really early on, I had my doubts that we were going to able to do this. None of us had never made a company before, never made a hardware product before. But as time goes on, obviously you're able to overcome and solve challenges you get thrown at us. I think Rima and I, we have faced multiple. We're still getting thrown challenges left and right, but we are able to solve it. Just like you said, being a good team. A lot of the things that I struggle with, Rima excels at, and vice versa. And I think that has been extremely important in overcoming the hard phases and hard times of building a company that we definitely had our fair share of so far.
Mhm. I totally agree with Mati said, and I think for me, a lot of it really comes down to the human aspect of things because we hear a lot that building a company can be lonely and hard and everything. But I always say that I think we got so lucky with just how things have been working for us, and most importantly, I think having the dynamic that we have and the way we can rely on each other makes things a lot easier because when we face hurdles, we know that the first reaction isn't, oh no, this is never going to work. It's always, okay, we're very solution oriented. And more than that, there's a lot of leniency and understanding. Of course, there's a lot of faith that we both have that SIP is going to work and, everything will go as great as it could be. But it's also like we understand how life works, when the different conditions that both of us have, when one of us needs to take over, we have no issues with that. A lot of communication, transparency, and I think just making sure all of that is always in check and that we just both share that same passion and grind that, sip to the moon and we're going to make it work and we'll do whatever it takes. I think once those things are set in stone, there's really not much that becomes hard at that point.
What a foundation you have set between yourselves and the awareness that you have that you're going to have bad days. Everybody does. That's regardless if you have a business or not, too, by the way. But you have that ahead of time. And so that's really cool. We are almost at the end here. I could go into so many questions. You guys have something really cool that you're creating here. And what about family and friends? Who's had who? You don't have to name who, but have you had the famous? You guys are crazy. Have you had the negative Nellies come at you? And do you give any weight to that? And I hope you don't. But how have you overcome other people saying you guys are nuts?
I think, speaking at least from my own experience, we've been extremely fortunate to be in a support network that has been by our side from the very beginning, instead of saying, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" Especially me being a Norwegian, we are extremely introverted. So when we started posting on social media and putting ourselves out there, and really committing to the idea that you're trying to build something for yourself, was for me extremely scary at first, and it's still something uncomfortable for me to go publicly and say, because then you really have to own it. But again, never really had any bad experiences with that. Always been met with a lot of support. And what's so cool about what SIP is that it's really built, like I said, Rima and I, we started as close friends. And Nicholas Scargo also joined the company about a year later. Also is my best friend and really close friend of Rima as well. And early on, like, it was just a really close circle with our family and friends that were able to make things happen. So it's kind of something that is built out of a very closed and warm network, which has been super important for us in overcoming all the challenges that we have faced together.
Same for me. It would be very wrong and hypocritical for me to say that we haven't had just the best reaction overall, whether it was our friends or families. And I think both for me and Mathis, our closer, circle of friends and family know how we move, basically, know that we really put our heart into everything we do, that we're hard workers and just honest in general. So I think just starting this preneur initially was like, oh, well, we'll see where it goes, but I'm sure it'll be great regardless of the outcome. And I think the more things have been progressing and we've just reached milestone after milestone, we can just see in the way people support and react and reach out to us there individually that there's a lot of love and support that comes from it, and we feel it every day. We get more fueled by it, and it always very humbling also, because we're like, it's a huge privilege and a huge like kind of pressure, but in the best way possible, because we're always thinking, oh my god, like all these people believing us, they support us, there's no way for us to fail. There just isn't.
You two, regardless of what happens to SIP, are going to do very well. You know this as well, but go on to any Shark Tank episode or anybody who's made it. They have all said the same thing over and over and over, that I learned so much about myself in that first venture that I've now taken to my second venture, even if it's a successful venture, the first one. And I've broken through things that I didn't even think I knew about myself that I could do. So at your young age, you are way ahead of the game. So just want to applaud both of your efforts where you're at and your mindset. You have a great mindset. You have a great group of friends, community to cheer you on, right? So speaking of athletics, I mean, Mathis, you're going to have a lot more cheerleaders, if you will, rooting you on. So really great story. Thank you for being on the podcast. Where can anybody learn more about SIP? Where can they go? Who's listening and watching?
Absolutely. So you can find us basically everywhere. We have a great head of marketing. Her name is Luana Becker, also a USF student. But you can find us on Instagram at SIP Hydration, and you can find us on LinkedIn, SIP Hydration, and the same goes for TikTok as well.
And that's SYP Hydration. All right, love it. It's funny. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've taken 2 sips myself during the podcast. It's how that, like, wait, that was like when someone sneezes, then you sneeze. And that's what caused that. Really, really great to have you on. Again, the Financial Rebellion podcast, we're not just a podcast. We are a media asset that is helping credit unions all around the country start reaching younger members, because credit unions need younger members to stay relevant. And we're helping them do that through our media asset of the podcast, newsletter, social media, and more. So again, to subscribe to the newsletters, go to financial-rebellion.com. And again, local credit unions in Tampa, right? That's where you guys are at, from USF Credit Union to Suncoast, Achieva, and others that are there to help you do your money the Financial Rebellion way also. And then again, the Midwestern credit unions that we're working with in the South, Alabama Credit Union and Kemba. All right, Mathis and Rima, thank you for being on this episode of Financial Rebellion. Any final parting words?
I would just like to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and stay hydrated.
Thank you, Todd. This was really a great experience. We're really grateful. Like Mathis said, stay hydrated and don't miss out on SIP.
I love it. You guys are so ready to soar. You've got it down. All right. Thanks so much. And again, thanks for listening to the Financial Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Todd Romer, and we'll see you in the next episode.